Hey everybody, and welcome in again to the Shelby County High School Football Show alongside Andrew Simonson. I'm Alec Etheridge, and we're geared up for another big week of high school football action right here in Shelby County. And this one, after a break from region play last week, Andrew, we jump back into region play this week, and we've got some big matchups. But before we look ahead to what we've got this week, last week a lot happened, and I know it was a non-region week, but still a ton to touch on when you look at what we saw a week ago. Thompson loses their first game of the season in an incredible battle, nationally televised game against Clay Chalkville on ESPN2. Briarwood beats Oak Mountain, battle of 119, and Briarwood gets their 400th win in program history, so a big one there. And then Pelham and Helena, they win on homecoming. Montevallo, a thrilling comeback, wins by 1 point. Cornerstone, a thrilling comeback, wins a tight game to remain unbeaten, and Evangel beats their biggest rival to remain unbeaten. So plenty that happened a week ago, as it was a break from region play, but a lot of those teams win those kind of games. It can build your confidence going into this second leg of region play. So, Andrew, when you look back at last week, what is it that kind of stood out to you the most in all of that great action that we did have?
I think what really stood out to me was just reestablishing that 6A Region 3 is really wide open this year. You saw Pelham, Helena, and Briarwood all continue to show out. Homewood had a solid performance as well. You just really look at the top 4 or 5 teams in this region, and you just really think about how wide open it is and how great of a battle it's going to be down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, that region is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to see that this week, one of our games of the week, and we've got dueling games of the week again for the second time this season, but one of them going to take place right here where we're shooting the show on Tuesday morning at Helena High School. Helena going to play host to the Briarwood Lions, and a matchup of two teams that are currently undefeated in region play. And boy, has Helena looked good so far this season, still undefeated overall, too. So this is going to be a big showdown in region play. The winner of this one, a really good chance to win the region championship this year, but especially Helena if they're able to walk away with this win. And we'll talk a little bit more about why that's the case with what's ahead for them. But a busy week last week. Now we get back into region play. But before we get to that point in the season, we've kind of reached what is considered somewhat that midway point of the year. Andrew, what is it that so far this season has kind of shocked you the most or stood out to you the most through this 6 weeks of the high school football season now?
I think that the biggest surprise staying within 6A Region 3 has been the Briarwood offense. We kind of knew that the Briarwood defense was going to eventually find their legs just because it's Briarwood. That's what they tend to do. And we know on offense they like to establish a bit of a ball control style, but to even see their passing game and their capability for some big plays on offense, I think it's made them a very complete team, and it may not have been visible when the season started, even though they did play some very quality opponents out of the gate. I think that they've just gotten better as the season's gone along, and we're only just now seeing what the Lions are capable of.
Yeah, and on the other side of the matchup that we're going to see for Briarwood this week, I think it's been Helena. I think Helena's been my biggest, the thing that's impressed me the most, and it's just simply because of the balance that we've seen from them offensively, but in addition to that, pairing it with the defense that they have this year. It's been a team that has been dominant, to say the least, so far this season. Not just, to me, a contender for a region championship right now, but if they stay focused, if they continue to play fundamentally sound football like this is a team that could make a deep playoff run in Class 6A this year, and that's a tall task no matter who you are, because 6A is arguably the most difficult classification across the state this season. So, but what Helena's done has been impressive. Obviously, still undefeated on the season at this point in the year. You look at everybody else in the county and what we have at the AHSA level, for the Helena Huskies to still be sitting without a loss at this point in the region they're playing is very, very impressive. So a good run for them so far. We've seen a lot of great talent so far on display this season. Obviously, now we get back into region play this week. We're going to see a lot of that talent on display, as most of these teams looking still in that playoff hunt, looking to chase down a playoff spot, and we've got some big matchups taking place this week. You look at Thompson Hewitt, that's going to be a battle of two undefeated teams in region play. Winner of that one going to have a leg up to win a region championship, and the same going to be said right here at Helena as the Huskies play host to Briarwood. So those are going to be our two games of the week this week. We're going to jump in. We're going to talk about those two games first, but in addition to that, we've got some big ones on display this week. Oak Mountain Can they beat Hoover for the first time in school history? Spain Park, can they get back into the playoff hunt and get back on track coming off a bye week? And Pelham and Calera in a must-win matchup for both of those teams as well. Those just a few of the storylines. We're going to talk about all of the games, a busy week of region play ahead right here in Shelby County, but we're going to jump in. We're going to start with the game right here at Helena High School as the Huskies play host to Briarwood. As we talked about in the open, this is going to be a huge showdown, one that I've been excited for since the beginning of the season, but that excitement has really grown the last few weeks. When you look at these two teams, Briarwood got off to a slow start again this season, but now 3-2. They've won 3 games in a row, coming off a huge win against rival Oak Mountain last week. So they're 3-2. They're 2-0 in region play. As for Helena, they're sitting at 6-0 right now and just continuing to roll and take care of business at this point in the season. So both these teams, to me, playing their best football right now coming into this matchup. And, Andrew, it can't get any bigger than this showdown. So what are your expectations when you look at these two teams, what we've seen from them so far, and what we can expect this Friday night when they meet on this football field behind us?
I think it's obvious to say that the big matchup is going to be Helena's offense against Briarwood's defense. Those are the two units that have really impressed us, not only within both of these teams so far this season, but within the county as a whole. Both the most impressive units that we've seen so far, and it's going to be fascinating to see them go together in this matchup just because of Helena's explosive power, their well-roundedness on every side of the ball, and then with Briarwood's defense, obviously, their ability to stop the run but also to defend the pass. We saw a lot of great pass defense last week against Oak Mountain, including a late interception for Gray Rebels. So I'm looking forward to see how those two units go together, but ultimately more than that, this is going to be a huge battle for the playoffs. We know that both these teams are likely going to be in the playoffs come November, but right now it could really decide who's really going to get the upper hand in playoff seeding and who's potentially even going to be there for a region championship at the end of the year as well. So this is a huge matchup and probably one of the biggest that we've seen in the county so far.
Yeah, you talked about what I kind of hinted at early in the show, and that's the winner of this game going to have a leg up to win the region championship. But for Helena, if they win this game, they've only got 2 region games left on the schedule, and both very winnable football games as well. So huge opportunity for them here, because even if they win this game and even if they lose one of those final 2 region games, still a great chance that they're going to walk away with the region championship. As for Briarwood, gives them some confidence, still some big games left on the schedule, but if they can win this one, same situation. They'll have 3 region games left, but a very, very good chance for them if they drop one of those final 3 region games still to win the region championship. So obviously better odds there for Helena if they can walk away with this win. Do you think that that's something that is fueling both of these teams, or when you look at it going into this matchup, like a team like Helena, they know they've got fewer region games left. If they win this one, it could give them that push over to win the region championship.
Definitely, and I think both these teams are going to walk in knowing what the stakes are. They obviously played like that last week, looking to make a statement and gain some momentum going into this big matchup, but at the same time, they're also going to compartmentalize and know that this is just one game of the remaining games left, and that while this is important to win, the rest are going to be important as well. So I expect both these teams to come out here strong and looking for a win, because it could help propel them into the next part of their schedule, just going one game at a time. As for Helena, I think their keys are going to be to get a fast start and looking for opportunities to punish them on the offense. Obviously, this is going to be Helena's biggest defensive test that they've seen this year. So how are they going to respond to that, and how are they going to play going against this great Briarwood defense? I think that's their key to victory. And as for Briarwood, I think it's going to be limiting big plays, and if they do happen to happen, just move on to the next play. And Josh Thompson's quarterback play is going to be absolutely huge, because we know what Cooper Higgins can do in the run game. Feel pretty solid about that. We know that Thompson is really settling into being a good quarterback, but he's going to need a very strong game against a very strong Helena pass defense.
Yeah, you look at this matchup, and like you said, these are 2 very, very good defensive football teams. Right now, Helena giving up 11.3 points per game. Been the most consistent defense that we've seen so far this season across Shelby County. Briarwood, though, back to playing Briarwood football and Briarwood defense, and they're giving up 19.8 points per game. It's been even more impressive over the last 3 that they've won. Started a little bit slow, but you look at that Clay Chalkville game to open the season, gave up 31 in that one. We saw what Clay just did to Thompson's defense last week, scoring 36 points. So that Briarwood defense, even though those first 2 games against Spain Park and Clay, they gave up 30+. This is a Briarwood defense that's playing some really good football. They're going to want to turn this into a physical running style game where both these teams are going to try to churn clock, take time off the clock, and really work to focus on the defensive side of the football. So I think this could be a very low-scoring game, maybe a 21-17, 20-17 kind of game there between these two when you look at it on paper. I think that's what Briarwood wants because their offense, like you said, still trying to work and get that identity. I think they've got the identity, but trying to balance it out a little bit more. Right now, scoring just 16.6 points per game. To me, they're going to have a bigger week and really put it all together this week. Ultimately, that's what I think makes the difference in this game is the gap that we see between these two teams offensively. Andrew, for you, one, what is it that makes the difference? But two, who do you have winning this one?
I think it's exactly like what you said. I think that the offensive firepower that Helena has is going to power them to victory here, but do not count out Briarwood. We've seen what their defense can do. We've seen what their offense can do as well. It's a really underrated aspect of their game, this Briarwood offense. So I would not be surprised if this goes to the fourth quarter and even to the closing minutes as a very close game. But I think at the end, Helena's experienced in these situations, their talent that they've proven over the season so far, I just can't bet against them. I'm going with the Huskies in a close one.
Yeah, I'm in that same boat. You look at this game on paper, Helena scoring right now 42.8 points per game, and it's different than what we've seen in the past. To me, that's what's impressive. It's an offense that's balanced offensively. They've got Jordan Washington and Jeremy Spratling and a couple others that can run the football, but they've got such a dynamic run game that being able to throw the football is even bigger of a key this year, and they've got that. Carson Acker has been impressive to say the least. Hunter Hill has been awesome last week. I mean, it's kind of gone back and forth. You have Washington have a huge game, then you have Hill have a huge game. Well, Hunter Hill had a big game last week, return touchdown on special teams, 3 touchdowns receiving as well. Carson Acker at the quarterback position has been impressive as well. So this is an offense that's just so much more dynamic than it's been in years past. You pair that with the run game that they have and the defense that they have, to me, it's a different Helena team this year. And I fully expect them, the way they're playing right now, to finish region play undefeated. That said, this is their toughest defensive test, and it likely will be their toughest defensive test of region play. And I think that's going to be a huge focus for them early. One, do they come out and get off to a fast start against a good defense? And two, we know that they like to be a second-half team, wear you down. How do they come out of the locker room in the second half if they struggle a little bit offensively early against that good Briarwood defense? But this is going to be a heck of a matchup. Two very quality football teams, two great defensive football teams. This is what we like to see. It's going to be a slugfest out here when these two meet right here behind us on Friday night. Can't wait to see this one. I'll be out here covering this game. It's going to be a lot of fun between these two region foes and two county rivals. We'll see which one remains undefeated in region play and has a leg up for that region championship. We've got another battle of undefeated region opponents this week when Thompson hits the road to take on Hewitt-Trussville, and another game where this could determine who wins a region championship. We just talked about Briarwood and Helena, Class 6A Region 3. Now we jump up to Class 7A Region 3, and Thompson hitting the road to take on Hewitt-Trussville, and it's a different circumstance for Thompson this week, coming off their first loss of the season and first loss since late last year to end the regular season before going on that special playoff run. So a little bit of adversity at this point as they lose to Clay Chalkville, but a heck of an effort. Two of the top teams in the state as Thompson falls 36-33 a week ago against the Cougars, number 2 team in Class 6A. So now there's no time to sulk. I mean, they're right back into it this week, Andrew, as they take on Hewitt-Trussville. And this is a team in Hewitt that's sitting right now at 5-1 on the season. Their only loss coming to Central Phoenix City by a score of 48-24 early in the season. A lot of people think Central Phoenix is the best team in the state this season when it comes to the 7A classification. So this is a very good football team that's putting up some good numbers so far this season. They're rolling along right now, and you got to feel this is their best chance in a while to really get a chance to beat Thompson because of the defensive woes that we saw a little bit last week against Clay Chalkville. And this is a Hewitt team that's fast, they're athletic, and a team that likes to score a lot of points. They've lost 4 straight in this series. Andrew, when you look at this matchup, what is it that gives Hewitt a chance to win, and what does Thompson need to do to be able to get back on track and kind of stay in the driver's seat for the region championship?
Well, when you look at Hewitt, you obviously want to look at their pass game as their best chance to win. Kind of the opposite of what we saw from Clay Chalkville last week, where they want to punish Hewitt with a big dynamic run game. It's gonna be a big dynamic pass game for Hewitt, so we're gonna see that aspect of Thompson's defense tested. But I personally like their pass defense more than their run defense at this point in the season. Obviously, what we saw from Clay really can't be replicated by many teams across the state just because of what Jalen Mbakwe and the rest of that team can do. That offensive line looked absolutely incredible for Clay last week. And obviously we saw that Thompson, while they're a really good team, they're still not quite there yet. Still some improvements that need to be made, and I think that this is a great test for them not to see how they bounce back from the loss and really just kind of propel themselves to make themselves better in the quest for the playoffs. And if Hewitt wants to win on the passing game, I think that bodes well for Thompson, just because it seems like every single week we've seen great plays from Anquan Fagans, Caleb Harris, the rest of this Thompson pass defense. So I really like them in this matchup, and it's like you kind of alluded to earlier. I think this has a really good chance to be a shootout just because of the explosive nature of Thompson's offense. When they really want to get going, they can really open up the passing game. I think that helps them stay in this game really well. I think as well ultimately gives them the edge too. I think that Thompson has a little more experience in the bigger game situations this season, with a win against Vestavia Hills and a close loss against Clay Chalkville. I think that they're going to have a lot more confidence coming into this game despite the loss. I think that playing a tough opponent within non-region play versus having more of a cupcake rivalry game that Hewitt had last week is going to bode well for them going into this matchup. I think that Thompson is going to come into this matchup prepared, motivated, and just ready to go and take a big region win to propel them for the rest of the schedule, which looks a lot easier after this game gets done.
Yeah, I think this is a huge game for Thompson, and I think that's a good thing. One, they play on Thursday night last week, so they have a little bit of extra time to prepare. But two, to face this kind of test right out of the gate, right after your first loss against a very talented football team, I think that's great because it gets your team right back into focus mode. They know what they've got to do this week. To me, the biggest thing for Thompson that they've got to improve on, one, the offensive line's got to get a little bit better. There were a lot of times, especially at key moments in that game last week, where Trent Seaburn was under pressure very quickly and forced to make decisions that kind of became costly there late in that football game that he shouldn't have had to have made at that point in time. So the offensive line going to have to get better. They lose one of their offensive line starters in that game early, and so they're going to have to find ways to improve there. But beyond that, that front seven has got to figure out how to tackle a little bit better. And that's not something you're used to seeing as an issue for Thompson at this point in the season because they've had some of the top recruits in the country the last several years, and Jeremiah Alexander, Jax Van Zant, Peter Woods, all playing football at the next level right now. And they had a lot to replace this year coming into the season. So the front seven last week against that speedy Clay Chalkville team, a lot of just diving with the shoulder pads, kind of trying to lean into it. A lot of them just running straight into the line and hoping for the best at times. But that was a very big offensive line for Clay Chalkville and a very speedy backfield for Clay Chalkville as well. And either they went right up the middle and beat you through the middle, or they would beat you to the edge. And so that front seven is going to have to be prepared the rest of the way for situations like that. But that said, this secondary might be the best in the state, if not one of the best in the country at the high school level. And that's what makes the difference in a game like this, because this is a Hewitt-Trussville team that, while they're fast, while they're athletic and can get to the outside, typically want to beat you throwing the football. When you're going up against a secondary like this, that's going to be a tall task to do, and I think that may be what makes the difference in this football game. But defensively, both of these teams playing really good football overall this season. Thompson giving up 13.2 points per game. We're giving up less than 8 points per game going into last week's matchup, and Hewitt giving up 16 points per game so far this season, both scoring right around 40. So something's got to give in this one, and I think you're going to see a Thompson offense settled in. I talked about it after the game last week. Head coach Mark Freeman seemed really calm after that game. You saw it too, really composed, answering questions. I think he found out if his team can handle that kind of Clay Chalkville team and compete in a close game with them, if his offense can put up the points that they did against that defense, which may be the best defense in the state, I think he feels really comfortable moving forward because now he knows exactly what they need to work on to be a state championship contending team. I think that's what bodes well for them going into this game and ultimately what brings them out on top in a huge game for the Thompson Warriors. So we'll see if they can bounce back, but I think they've got the key pieces in place. They've obviously got the coaching staff to make it happen. It's going to be a big showdown, though, on the road at Hewitt-Trussville. We'll see if that's a factor as well, a tough place to go and play. But ultimately, I think Thompson, with the talent that they have, the improvements that they're going to make from last week to this week, I think that the Warriors walk away with the big region win. It's never happened in school history, but could this be the season? Could this be the year, Andrew, that Oak Mountain takes down the Hoover Buccaneers? It seems like their best chance, just looking at what we've seen overall this season between these two teams, but especially from the Hoover side. Hoover's never been more beatable, or at least in a long time. When you look at this, it's the worst Hoover team probably since 1998 that finished 4-6 that year. They're off to their worst start since then. The best they can do right now, if they win out, is finish 5-5. And you don't hear that when you think Hoover football. That is crazy to think about. So if you're Oak Mountain, and yes, you've struggled this season, but going into this matchup, you've got to feel like you have your best chance in a long time to beat this Hoover team and really get some big confidence for this program after a little bit of a slow start this season. Andrew, is it something that's possible this week for Oak Mountain to be able to go on the road to the Hoover Met and walk away with a win against the Hoover Buccaneers?
It's possible, and it's not something that you would have thought you said going into the season, but that's just really a testament to the struggles that Hoover has faced so far this season. Just a win over Spain Park in the season, and that was a hard-fought win at that, too. A very bad loss to Mountain Brook last week, a very good Mountain Brook team, but still losing by multiple points to a 6A team. Not the best look for the Hoover Buccaneers, and you start seeing a lot of external pressure from the fans as they expect success, obviously, as this is one of the worst Hoover starts in school history, and they're really going to need to get some momentum going soon, and they're going to look at this game thinking that they can get some momentum as well, but you just look at this Oak Mountain team, and they've got to be liking their chances just because not only of how beatable that Hoover has been this year, but some of the talent that Oak Mountain has shown in spurts this year as well. Obviously, struggling in the last couple of weeks, especially in that loss to Briarwood, just not really being able to deal with the Briarwood defense that much. And you have to really think that they need a little bit of confidence as well, but this is exactly the type of game that they can go out and get that. So I really like Oak Mountain's chances here. I still think at the end of the day that Hoover probably walks away with the win, but I do think that Oak Mountain has shown enough in situations. You look at the Pelham game, you look at a little bit of the Chelsea game as well. You've just got to think that if this is going to be the season where Oak Mountain is going to beat Hoover, then you have to really like what you're seeing out of the Eagles so far for that.
All right, Andrew, so if I were to ask you which of these teams on paper has the better offense, who would you say?
I would probably lean Hoover just because I've seen them score more points in more situations this season.
Okay. If I were to ask you which of these teams has the better defense on paper, who would you say?
I'd say probably Oak Mountain. They've shown that they've been able to limit a few more opponents to some points. Obviously, they haven't played the toughest stretch of their schedule so far, and they gave up a lot of points to Hewitt-Trussville as well. But I still think that overall, I think that Oak Mountain has shown the stronger defense this year.
One of two on those. Oak Mountain leads in both categories. And that is absolutely unbelievable when you look at this. Oak Mountain scoring 17 points per game, just a hair more than Hoover's 16.8 points per game. And Hoover typically has some of the best offensive talent in the state. They've had some of the best national recruits in the state over the last 15 years. So that's just crazy to think about. But Oak Mountain narrowly the better offense between these two teams and about 2 points per game better on the defensive side. Oak Mountain giving up 27 points per game and Hoover giving up 29.2 points per game. Now, Hoover has played a more challenging schedule. There's no way around that. Hoover has played a difficult schedule, and to me, that's the difference. That is what ultimately makes the difference in this game. So we can look at the numbers, we can look at the records, both sitting at 1-5. Who would have thought that would have been the case at this point in the season for these two teams together in this matchup? But Hoover's been challenged a little bit more those first two games of the season. They were challenged early, and in region play they've been challenged as well. So I think that that's the difference. They're a little bit more battle-tested, but with the way that Oak Mountain plays football, if they come out and do what they do successfully, this is going to be a hard-fought, tight, lower-scoring battle between these two teams, and that's going to all, to me, lean on the Oak Mountain offensive line and quarterback Will Odell. If they come out and they have a solid game up front offensively and Odell's able to really get in the trenches and power his way to a big game running the football, that's their biggest key to success. If they can do that, this is going to be a tight game, and Oak Mountain's going to have their chances at the end of the day. But so far this season, we've seen Hoover play in some really tight games against some really good football teams. They've been challenged. I think that ultimately makes the difference. We know they're under fire, so there's probably a lot of lack of confidence. There's probably some division there from the fans to the coaching staff to the players. It's an ugly scene right now, to be honest with you and quite frank. I mean, it's just a different situation than you've seen at Hoover in a long time. So that could be what cost them this game. If they can find a way to come together and play as a unit, then they should be able to walk away with a win. But like we said, it's Oak Mountain's best chance in a long time. Evan Smith gave them a good shot a few years ago. If they had him this year, they'd win this game, no doubt in my mind. So Will Odell, he's not Evan Smith, but he's going to have to turn into something that can continue to get 4 or 5 yards of play, move the chain, and take a lot of time off this clock. If they can do that, this is an Oak Mountain team that could be right in this game with a chance to pull off history in the fourth quarter. We'll see if the Eagles can do it this Friday night as they hit the road to take on Hoover. We remain in Class 7A to talk about the Spain Park Jaguars as they hit the road to take on Tuscaloosa County, and to me is the biggest game of the season for the Jaguars. This is the game that will determine if they've got a chance to make the playoffs. If they lose, there's no chance for Spain Park to me. It was my bold prediction coming into the season that Spain Park gets back into the playoffs, and in talking with head coach Tim Vakakis and this team and being around them for a couple of games a few weeks back, this is the week that they were looking forward to, too. They know they were unhealthy for a couple games there, taking on Hoover, taking on Thompson in back-to-back games, battling some injuries. They knew that they had another big one coming up with Vestavia Hills and then a bye week. Well, now they've had that bye week, and this is where they're expected to be healthy, and this is where they're expected to get back to that team that should have probably beaten Hoover a few weeks back, even when they were unhealthy in that game. They had gotten a little bit worse with the injury bug since then, but now expected to be a little bit healthier going into this matchup with Tuscaloosa County, Andrew. And it's going to be a tough game. It's on the road. This is an improved Tuscaloosa County team that's battling for a playoff spot as well. It's basically looking like it's going to come down to Tuscaloosa County, Hoover, and if Spain Park can win this one, the Jaguars as well. So when you look at this matchup on paper and you look at these two teams, what's the biggest key for Spain Park if they do want to get the win, if they want to have a chance to compete for the playoffs?
I think that their biggest challenge here is going to be stopping the explosive power of Tuscaloosa County, and we've seen that just throughout the season with some of their games throughout region play, is that they can punish you and they can punish you quick. So it's limiting those big plays on defense and giving yourself a chance, just a couple of drives on offense, because I feel like that's all that the Spain Park team really needs. Like you mentioned, they're getting healthier. Both of the Shanks brothers coming back in limited roles against Vestavia Hills. They get a bye week to get fully healthy. We'll see if they're 100% going forward. And obviously Reggie Jackson gets that extra time to get healthy as well. So we'll see if the Spain Park team comes out close to 100% on offense. But I think even in a slightly compromised state, that this is still a Spain Park offense that we've seen do very good things, both in the passing game and in the running game. They now have both dimensions of their offense back, and I think that really helps them towards getting a really balanced attack in this game. But I think that the defense is going to be so key here as well, with the pass rush coming in and some of the pass defense as well. This is just a really balanced and loaded Spain Park defense that I think is going to keep them into this game and give them the best chance to win.
Yeah, and I think that the biggest key is that they started to lose some confidence on that side of the ball when you watched them taking on Hoover, taking on Thompson in consecutive weeks, but then they gained it back a little bit against Vestavia Hills. That was a close game for a long time. And that's what kept them in that football game, even with the offense still missing some key pieces there. But that defense, I think is a big key for them. When you look at these two defenses on paper right now, this is a Tuscaloosa County team giving up 28 points per game, Spain Park giving up 23 points per game, and look at the teams that Spain Park's played so far this season. To be giving up 23 points per game, it's light years ahead of where they've been since their state championship appearance days several years ago. So this is a defense that's back to me. And I think that with the bye week at the right time, they've got that confidence back as well. They've had some time to prepare, watch film, see what they need to improve on, and realize that this is basically our season. And I think that's the next big key. I think that they know just how big this football game is for them. When you look at these two teams, this Tuscaloosa County team that's scoring right now 30.4 points per game, so they're playing well offensively. They've got some athleticism. They've got some talent. Spain Park on the other end scoring 26.8 points per game, but I think the defense makes up those 4 points there where they're lacking on the offensive side, keeps this game where they need it. And when you look at Brock Bradley, the young quarterback, he's going to have some weapons back. Hopefully Reggie Jackson back out there. We know about some of the others. You mentioned the Shanks brothers. They should be more balanced this week than they've been able to be since really that Hoover game and maybe before that early in the season. I expect them with the bye week to put it all together, go on the road with their season basically, to me, on the line. They've got to play like it. If you want to make the playoffs, it comes down to the playoffs start now. And when you've got that and you've got a coach like Bukakis who can get that team motivated, I think that's going to be a huge element to this football game on the road, and I think that's what makes the difference. I think Spain Park walks away with a victory. So for the Jags, a big one there as they take on Tuscaloosa County in a crucial region showdown there on the road. We'll see if they can walk away with that victory. Need it desperately. We both expect that Spain Park can go and do it. The Chelsea Hornets going to return home this week. Homecoming for Chelsea as they host Vestavia Hills. And this is a very, very good Vestavia football team, Andrew. We've talked about it week in, week out, about how talented this team is with some of the crossover we've already had against some of our county opponents this season. To me, the second best, almost the best team in this region this year. Played Thompson really close a few weeks back. This is a very good defensive, physical football team, and when you look at Chelsea last week taking on Pelham, they just looked flat, and they're dealing with a lot of injuries right now. Don't know how healthy they're going to be going in to this matchup, but they need to get something to kind of get that confidence back, get some momentum rolling. Emerson Russell, the star running back, has been dealing with his own injuries, and he's such a key component to this team. So if he's not able to go, they're going to have others step up and really come together as a team with a lot of young football players. But this isn't really the week that you want to have to be able to find some of that confidence. So, Andrew, you look at this game, we talk about Vestavia's physicality. What's the expectation here as the Hornets host Vestavia Hills?
Well, I think they're going to be coming in knowing that Vestavia is going to bring them the challenges both on offense and defense. There's a lot of film on Vestavia, and the film was very good. We know how talented the Rebels are coming in. So Chelsea's going to come up wanting to play and knowing that they have to give their best effort to have a chance in this game. And that's exactly what they're going to have to do. Coming off the last few weeks, struggling to score on offense, struggling to contain on defense as well. This is a Chelsea team that needs a spark, and they need a spark quick because the easiest part of their schedule is over, and they're moving into some very challenging games going into the rest of the season. So I think that overall, this has to be it for Chelsea. They have to show, even if they don't come out with the win here, which is however unlikely it is, I think that they're going to have to at least show something within this game, whether it's through Emerson Russell, getting him active on offense despite the problems that he's been dealing with, whether it's somewhere else on the offense, the passing game, what we've seen from Jackson Shuttlesworth and some of the other receivers so far, or if it's a big defensive stop. We've seen some of them over on defense, like Anderson Brooks and some of their other weapons as well, come through on occasion as well. But it's a lot of spurts for Chelsea so far and just a little bit of sparks, and it hasn't really been a lot of big together complete performances from this Hornets team, and that's what they're going to have against the Rebels.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it, and this is a Vestavia team that's so good defensively right now, and it's a Chelsea offense that's scoring just 16.8 points per game. Like you said, they kind of have that explosive play, typically from Russell each week, but they just can't put it together continuously, and that's because there just hadn't been enough balance. And they have had those 1 or 2 weeks where they've had a little bit more balance, and it's led to some success, and that's what they're going to have this week is that complete balance overall. Is this a week where they can do that and pull it off and be able to walk away with a win?
I don't think so. I think that Vestavia walks out of here with the win, but I do think that Chelsea, like I mentioned earlier, is going to come into this game looking more for momentum, more so than a win. They obviously know what the challenge is that Vestavia is going to bring them, and they know the challenges going forward. So I think that they're going to see this game at homecoming as a chance to prove to themselves and their fans, we've still got a chance in this. We've still got something to prove within the region schedule to go, and I think that that's what they're going to be looking for in this game.
Yeah, I think, to me, you mentioned a minute ago, it's the defense. I think that's the key for them in this game. It's a defense that has struggled at times. They've shown some success at times, overall giving up 33.5 points per game. But this is the kind of game. So Vestavia offense, it likes to come out, run the football, be physical up front, and kind of take control that way. And they can pull away at times doing that, but it also can lead to some tighter games going into the half and maybe late into that second half. And so if you're Chelsea, you've got to have a great defensive game plan. You've got to have your guys jacked up, ready to go, and ready to be physical and in for a battle. If the defense comes in with that mindset that, hey, we can be just as physical as this football team, let's go out and make a statement, then this is a game that could be closer than a lot of people may think on Friday night. And to me, they've got to do that. That's got to be the difference for Chelsea, especially with some of the offensive struggles, the injuries that they're dealing with. They've been so one-dimensional at times, but they've also shown flashes of success in the passing game. If they can have that come together as well as the defense be amped up, then they could pull off the upset. But it's just all got to come together at the same time. Vestavia is the better football team. I expect them to walk away with a win, but that Chelsea defense comes out fired up and ready to go. That could make this a close contest. We'll see if they're able to do it as they play host to Vestavia Hills. The Pelham Panthers got a huge bounce-back win last week. Coming off 2 straight losses in region play, they're able to pick up a big home win on homecoming night against the Chelsea Hornets. They win that one 27-7, and they scored all 27 points in the first half as the offense came out, was explosive. Clayton Maine strong in the passing game. Defense looked like itself again, and they just put it all together. Didn't need much in the second half as they kind of just coasted the rest of the way to victory there. But Pelham gets back on track, gets that confidence that you need in a non-region game with that break from region play, jumping back into region play now in a key matchup against county foe Calera, who's also coming off of a break last week as they had a bye week off their 0-5 start to the season. So for both of these teams, it's must-win time. Both sitting winless in region play at this point. Pelham Panthers, we expected to have a chance to win a region championship this year. That ship seems to have sailed at this point, but now still battling for one of those top 4 seeds, possibly a top 2 seed if they can put together a winning streak here to end region play. But it starts this week, and these are both teams that are, playing for their lives, playing for their season right now when it comes to the playoff chances. Pelham able to get a little bit of confidence back last week. I think that's key. Andrew, Calera, they still hadn't picked up that win. We've seen flashes at times. What's the expectation from you when you look at this matchup as far as who's going to be able to walk away with the win, the differences from each team that need to make it happen?
I think beyond anything on paper, which obviously shows us that Pelham is the better team in this matchup, I think it's the confidence. I think that Pelham getting that win against Chelsea last week means the world to them coming off those back-to-back region losses, because we know that in region play that every game matters, and to lose one game is tough. To lose 2 in a row is even tougher. So I think getting that win against a Chelsea team that they know is probably going to be in their region next year, that they know that they've been close to in the past, to get that big win and a big statement, I think is going to be a very good thing for them going forward. And they have a chance to continue that against a Calera team that really hasn't found much in the way of momentum so far this season. Some offense in spurts, but overall just struggling to contain on defense, and I think that that's going to be the difference. I think that Pelham has a chance to come out here early with some big explosive plays in the passing game, just establish the run game and get some time running off the clock, and just overall get a lot of points on the board and not really give Calera too many chances to get on the board as well. But we know that if there is any hangover whatsoever from those 2 region losses, that Calera does have a chance to capitalize and make this into a bit of a closer game than we could expect.
Yeah, I think for Calera's best chance in this is that they're coming off a bye week. They've had an extra week to look at that game from Pelham last week, to look at Pelham's season, really prepare well for this game, and I think that's their best opportunity at success this week is the preparation side of it. But ultimately, what I saw from Pelham last week, the defense is back. They're playing really good football there. They've got a lot of talent there, and they had a couple of weeks where they just didn't have it. And now they've shown back up defensively, and Clayton Maine showed some great touch on a lot of his throws last week. They really didn't have to do much in the run game, and I will say that's something they're going to have to improve on. Yes, Maines can run the football, but they're going to have some more balance with some running backs as well if they want a chance to finish highly in the playoff seating there in Class 6A Region 3. But at the end of the day, I mean, you look at these two teams, Pelham right now, offense hadn't had to light it up. They're scoring 21.4 points per game, but the defense giving up 19.4 points per game. If you're scoring more than you're giving up, that's a good thing to have, whereas Calera giving up 46 points per game right now on the season. Chelsea offense last week struggled to score, and this is a Calera offense that's only scoring 11 points per game. So the numbers just don't add up right now. Calera's still searching for that momentum. We'll see if they were able to put it together with the bye week, if they're going to be prepared for this matchup. But right now, just from what we've got to base this matchup on, Pelham looks to be the better team on both sides of the football. I expect the Panthers to walk away. I expect Maines to have a huge night in this game, and the defense to really set the tone early with their physicality. So a big one for both of these teams as they look to get their first region win of the season. We'll see which one is able to walk away with that victory at Pelham High School as the Pelham Panthers host the Calera Eagles. The Shelby County Wildcats coming off a tough loss to the Moody Blue Devils last week, one of the best teams in the 5A classification this year, as they lose that one 49-6. That's a Moody team that's now in really good shape. They're looking like a team that could compete for a 5A state championship. Shelby County, they fought a 1-4 overall in the season, just had their share of struggles so far, really on the offensive side of the football. The defense has played well, despite that 49 given up last week. Don't hold that against them against a talented team like that. But the offense right now just struggling. 13.6 points per game, and they're taking on a Demopolis team right now that's 3-2 overall, but 2-0 in this region, and they're only 2 losses this season to 2 of the best teams in the 4A classification. So you look at this matchup, Andrew, and it feels like Demopolis is the better team. They're scoring 22.6 points per game, giving up 21 points per game. I just don't see how Shelby County scores enough points. I do think this could be a lower scoring game, but Demopolis, to me, I think just has too much talent.
Yeah, we've seen a lot from them in the first season from their head coach, that they've really proven themselves against not just 4A talent, but against 5A talent as well. And you're absolutely right on Shelby County's offense. That's something that we needed to see step up from last year, and something that continues to need to step up this year as well. But it's the defense that keeps them in games every single time out. I think that a win against Jemison is really going to be used as a momentum builder going into this game. I think that is really what you have to build off of, and the fact that you obviously played a good Moody team, were able to find a little bit of momentum within that game, regardless of the score line, regardless of the result. I think that they're going to use that more as a building block, more than just seeing that as another loss in the schedule. I think that this could potentially be a close game just because of what the Wildcats do on defense. But you're right about what Demopolis has done so far. That's why I'm picking them to win this game. But don't be surprised if Shelby County has a shot come the fourth quarter.
Yeah, to me, it's the defense can keep them in this game if they come out play strong early. But it's just a young football team right now. They do have some playmakers that can make some plays, but they're young. They're going to get better in the future. But right now, it's just such a young football team going up against a Demopolis team that's expecting to compete for region championship each and every year, and they're in that same boat this year. I just don't see right now. You've got a Shelby County offense that scored 21 or less in every game, an average of 13.6 points per game, going up against a physical team and defense that Demopolis has. I just don't see how Shelby County scores enough points in this matchup to be able to walk away victorious. Defense can keep them in it, but offense is going to be what makes the difference at the end of the day. I expect Demopolis also to walk away with a win. Was a massive 21-20 win for the Montevallo Bulldogs last week as they come back, take down Jemison, who honestly I thought Montevallo was a lot better than this year, ended up being a tight, closely contested game, but maybe that's a benefit for this Montevallo team moving forward as they now jump back into region play. They host Sipsey Valley this week, and this is a huge game, Andrew. When you look at this one on paper, Montevallo sitting at 4-1 overall, Sipsey Valley sitting at 3-2. But when you look at this, when it comes to the region standings, this is a must-win, really, for both of these teams. But for Montevallo, if they lose this one, the rest of the way gets even tougher. And they've got some winnable games down the stretch, but they've got a couple of really losable games as well. So for Montevallo, this is almost a must-win situation. We saw something similar last year, and they struggled down the stretch, couldn't get into the playoffs. This one, to me, determines their postseason fate this year. So when you look at these two teams, Andrew, the chance for Montevallo to pick up a win, what's the key for them, and will they be able to do it as they host Sipsey Valley?
I think the key, since these two teams have looked so close so far in the season, is going to be Montevallo's experience in close games, which has obviously been mixed, but has recently trended towards the better for them. Obviously, losing that close game against West Blockton a couple of weeks ago, that really could have set the tone for what they were going to do the rest of the season, but instead they were able to isolate that, get a good comeback win against Jemison, and a game that obviously we expected to be a lot bigger of a result for Montevallo, but I view it the same way as you. I think that that's a benefit for Montevallo, just showing, hey, we can redeem ourselves from a close loss and turn it around into a close win the next week. So if they're able to build off of that close win, I think that they're really positioned well for the rest of the way. Obviously, the schedule gets a lot tougher, starting with here, the team in Sipsey Valley that they're used to competing with for the final playoff spot, and it's going to be the exact same this year. And with Bibb County and ACA lurking, this is absolutely huge for Montevallo. So they're going to have to come out, show up on both offense and defense, maybe set the tone with a big play or two early on, but I think that overall they're going to have to control the run game, control the pass game, and just overall take the fight to Sipsey Valley and show that they really want to be in this playoff hunt.
So do you think that Montevallo is going to be able to do that and really come out, set the tone early, and then pull away, or not necessarily pull away, but be able to hold on for a victory in this one?
Definitely, and I think that that's because of the defense that they've shown so far. I think that all that it takes for Montevallo to get a win in this game, I think that's going to be to get a couple of stops and bank on the offense to score in response. Obviously, both of these offenses have looked strong so far this season, but I think that overall, I have a little more confidence in Montevallo, despite some of the performances that Sipsey Valley has shown this year. I think that Montevallo's defense is really going to be the deciding factor in this game, and because of what I've seen so far from the Bulldogs, that's why I like them in a very close game.
Yeah, I'm going to go the opposite direction, and simply because it's one of those, I need to see it to believe it. I've got to see it from Montevallo this week, and they need to come out and play like I'm telling them that, like they're being doubted. If they come out with that chip on their shoulder, I think that's their best chance at a win in a game like this. But you look at last year, this is a game Sipsey Valley won 33-14 a season ago. This year, Montevallo playing well enough defensively, giving up 13.8 points per game, but the offense has just been so inconsistent, and after that 33 and 42 points that they scored in back-to-back games, they've scored 7 and 21 and just hadn't had a lot of success offensively the last couple of weeks. I need to see that offense be consistent. I need to be able to see them throw the football a little bit better. They've got Rosario Conwell, who's played well at the running back position. Braxton King's had some success at quarterback, but he's also been a little bit more impressive running the football at times. There just hasn't been that consistency throwing the football, putting up a ton of points on a consistent basis, and going up against the Sipsey Valley team that's in a similar situation. Both know how important this game is. I need to see it from Montevallo on the offensive side. I think their defense can keep this game tighter than the 33-14 game last year. I could see it being a one-possession game late, but I've got to have that trust and faith in Montevallo to make those plays offensively to win one of those tight games. They did it last week. Can they do it for the second week in a row? It's going to be a tall task. It's a very good Sipsey Valley football team, and I think ultimately that Sipsey Valley walks away with the win in a tight game. But Montevallo's defense keeps this one close. The offense will have its chance to make plays that could tilt this the other way. We'll see if they're able to answer the bell and make those big-time plays late in this football game. Another big game to talk about, the Vincent Yellow Jackets playing host to Ranburne this week. And, Andrew, this is one that's huge for both of these teams. But Vincent coming off back-to-back losses. They lose to BB Comer 36-0, shutout loss there. come back against Childersburg, an improved Childersburg team this year, in a higher classification team, and they lose that one 16-14 last Friday night. Well, now they take on Ranburne. You look at Vincent; they're sitting at 4-2 going into this matchup. Ranburne sitting at 3-2. On paper, there's a few differentials. I think Vincent should be the better team, but you're coming off 2 straight losses, and the confidence can start to get away from you a little bit. This is a team that played uber confident last year. They were confident again to start this season, but we've kind of seen them take a step back on the offensive side of the football the last couple weeks. Defense continuing to play great, even those 36 points given up against BB Comer. I think that's a very good football team that's going to likely win a state championship this season, but the defense has played good enough this year. Overall, the offense, though, has started to take those steps back. Will they be able to find it this week? Will they walk away with a win against Ranburne in a crucial matchup for the Vincent Yellow Jackets?
I think this is definitely an opportunity for a win, as we've seen in the past, but you can really throw much of the past out the window, especially from last season, just because we haven't seen the response from the Comer loss that we saw last year against Childersburg and now going in. While you can chalk up a lot of the Childersburg loss to just BB Comer being on another level, obviously being shut out a little bit worrying, but you can still see that Comer is one of the top teams in the state. It's the self-inflicted errors for me that had me really worried last week against Childersburg about this Vincent team, and had me worrying if they're really going to find a spark going forward, or if they're just going to continue sliding throughout this. I don't think that the slide is going to continue for much longer. I think that that loss last week against Childersburg is really going to sting for this team, knowing that they had a chance to win this game, knowing that they had a chance to win it late, and that ultimately they beat themselves at the end. I think that Vincent is going to come into this game motivated to make a statement on both offense and defense. Obviously, we know the defense is going to show up, but it's the offense that it's going to have to start putting some of the things together that we need to see for Vincent to be another playoff team this year.
So is that a Vincent pick for you then?
It is a Vincent pick. I think it's going to be definitely closer than it was last year, but I think as long as the defense shows up early, it allows the offense to start to click and find themselves in a pretty big game on the field this year. I think that Vincent ultimately has enough of the talent that they can come out here and make the difference on the field, but they're really going to have to show it in their mental game. It's all mental this week for Vincent, just coming off of a lack of momentum off the past 2 games. They've got to find the spark, and they've got to find it on the field this week.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is a big mental hurdle to overcome when you've lost 2 games in a row. You didn't have that happen last year. This is still a talented team, though, and if they can get those key pieces offensively working in the right direction again, then they're going to be just fine the rest of the way, and I think that starts this week. I think this is a Vincent team playing well enough defensively, giving up 13.8 points per game, 14.2 points per game on the season. Offense scoring still 29.8 even after the struggles of the last couple of weeks. I think the offense bounces back in a big way this week. I think they're going to put up some points against a Ranburne defense, giving up about 30 points per game. So I think that's a key, but their defense is playing well. So when you've got a defense that's giving up so few points on a consistent basis, and your offense has shown that promise at times, I think the offense bounces back. They pair those 2 sides of the football together. And I think this is a Vincent team that gains that confidence back. I don't see them slipping and sliding like they would have a few years ago. They've got a good enough head coach now. They've got that belief in the program back. I think Vincent's going to bounce back in a huge way this week. I think they win this one going away against Ranburne. We'll see if they're able to pull that off. Going to take a consistent effort on both sides of the ball, but the Vincent Yellow Jackets a great chance to get back on the winning track. That takes us down to the AISA and the ACSC, and we've got 3 matchups, all 3 teams in action again this week. We've got one top 2 battle with our ACSC team as the Evangel Lightning going to hit the road to take on Franklin Christian Academy out of Franklin, Tennessee. That's a number 1 Evangel team taking on a number 2 Franklin Christian team. We've also got Cornerstone and Trinity right here in Shelby County, and then Coosa Valley at Crenshaw. Andrew, what's your breakdown for these 3? Who's going to win each 3 of these football games?
I think that for Evangel, obviously you look at the 1-2 matchup and you see this obviously as Evangel's biggest test before the playoffs, but I think the key here is going to be the road trip. I think that obviously not their first time going to Tennessee this season, but their first time coming off of a game going to Tennessee, because they obviously started the season up in Gatlinburg. This is going to be their first time back up there since then. I obviously think that that could play a bit of a factor, but I think that Evangel just has a lot of momentum off of that Ezekiel win last week. Big win against a rival who they were obviously better than, but they showed it on the field as well. I think that makes a difference here. I think that the other thing that makes a difference here is drawing from that Lighthouse game where they had to make a comeback in the second half. This has the potential to be another 4-quarter battle, so I think that the fact that they've played one of those so far against a top 3 team in Lighthouse is going to really help propel Evangel to a win. I think that Evangel is going to take this matchup going into it, and I think that Cornerstone, they have to like their chances as well. Obviously, a little bit of a letdown after the Springwood game, struggling a bit against North River, struggling a little bit as well last week as well, but it's just the continued performance of Zeke Adams that continues to impress me for this team, not only on the offense, but on the defense as well, and all of the pieces around them as well. This is a very complete Cornerstone team that isn't just limited to Zeke Adams' dynamicism on both the offense and defense. I think that this is a team that's really starting to prove themselves as a state title contender, and they're just going to continue proving that this week. I like Cornerstone big in that matchup. And then as for Coosa Valley, obviously a big letdown last week against Evangel Montgomery. What they had to think was one of their best chances at a win this season, going against a Crenshaw team that's definitely a little bit better than Evangel Montgomery. I think that's going to show on the field, but I do think that Coosa Valley, they have some isolated strengths within the defense, a couple of great performers last week against Evangel Montgomery, and then getting over 100 yards rushing as a team for the second week going off the past couple of weeks, but I think that it's all going to have to start coming together. They're going to need to show more complete performances and show that on the field in order to get a win this season. I don't think it happens this week, but obviously they could continue to use that game, like we've said all season, just to continue building momentum and hoping to get a win before the season closes.
Yeah, I think as Coosa Valley, you look at them right now, sitting at 0-7 so far, coming off a 28-8 loss. This is a Crenshaw defense that's just playing too well. They're coming off a shutout. I think Crenshaw with that, it's going to be too tough for Coosa Valley to score. Defense of Coosa Valley could keep this tight. They've started playing a little bit better last few weeks. Could make this a closer game, but I do think Crenshaw is going to walk away with that win. Cornerstone and Trinity. Cornerstone coming off that 52-48 win over Southern Prep. They trailed that one 22-0, I believe. Came back to win that one. Zeke Adams continuing to play well. Cornerstone 6-0. Trinity 0-4, and they've given up 30, 74, 82, and 76 so far this season. Expect Cornerstone's offense to have a big night, walk away with a win there. As for Evangel at Franklin Christian, the top 2 battle, both these teams sitting undefeated right now, I believe, overall this season, but Evangel just been too consistent on both sides of the ball. 64-18 against Ezekiel, their biggest rival last week. This is an Evangel team that's given up 20 or less in every game so far this season and playing well offensively as well. I think Evangel goes on the road to Franklin Christian and walks away with the win as well. Now it's time to hand out some stars as we get to our SCR Stars of the Week segment. A big week for several local Shelby County High School football players, and you look at what we saw on paper last week, a break from region play. Some of these guys, though, stepped up like it was a region game, really played to their best and had a big-time effort. So, Andrew, we'll start with you. We'll get your 2 stars of the week, and then we'll jump back and we'll go through mine and the honorable mentions that we have as well.
Definitely, and my first star goes to a team, once again, that I saw in person this week. That's the Briarwood defense. Absolutely made a statement last week, forcing a fumble on the goal line, a pretty big goal line stand. It was a great sequence overall to watch. Just seeing them recover that in the end zone, it honestly turned the momentum within this game. Even though Briarwood obviously trending towards a great result in that really set them forward. In that, and the interception by Gray Rebels that sealed the deal. It was just big turnovers that helped get them that win, but it was also the continued pressure, forcing a lot of 3-and-outs from the Oak Mountain and not really letting them get a lot of momentum overall. I think that was really what made the difference in the game, is just that continued pressure on defense that really just demoralized Oak Mountain's offense and set Briarwood on the course for a win. In that shutout win, they've only given up 10.3 points per game each of the last 3 games, and it's a Briarwood team that's really starting to look like their identity in the last few weeks. First ever shutout against a 7-day opponent last week. hugely impressive for Briarwood. So that's why they get my first star of the week. And the second star of the week goes to Zeke Adams out of Cornerstone. Just another absolutely phenomenal performance, just like we've expected from Adams so far this season. 303 rushing yards, 64 passing yards, 7 total touchdowns. But it's not just on the offense, 10 total tackles on the defense as well from Zeke Adams. Just an absolutely dynamic two-way player. One of the best athletes that we've seen in the county so far this season. And his performance last week in a big comeback win for Cornerstone is exactly the reason why Zeke Adams gets my second star of the week.
Yeah, Zeke Adams playing some great football there at Cornerstone. He's going to have another big chance at a huge night this week as well. That Briarwood defense it's legit. It's turning into the Briarwood defenses that we're accustomed to seeing, and they've got a chance as well this Friday to make a big-time statement against the best team in the county right now in the Helena Huskies. As for my 2 stars of the week, going to start with Trent Seaburn at Thompson. Still a freshman there. The quarterback, as he goes up against arguably the best defense in the state, gave his team a chance to win that football game. 268 passing yards, 4 touchdowns on 14 of 25 passing. Did have 1 interception, but that came on a very incredible catch, really, by the Clay Chalkville defense. But overall, a great game for Seaburn there in the Thompson Warriors. My second star is going to end up going to Clayton Maines, who I got to see in person. Didn't have to do much in the second half of that football game against Chelsea, but 219 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and a 15-yard rushing touchdown there in that victory. Accounted for 3 of the 4 touchdowns from Pelham in that win. And the big thing is seeing the touch that he was putting on those passes. We know he can run the football, but the leap that he's making, being able to throw the football. It's been inconsistent at times, but if he can get it to be as consistent as it was last week, this is a team that's really going to finish strong the rest of the way. As for our honorable mention players, we start with the Thompson Warriors. Colby Hearn, we just talked about Seaburn and the big night he had. Well, Hearn was a big reason for that. 164 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns on just 4 catches in that game against a very good secondary that Clay Chalkville has out there. As for the Pelham Panthers, we talked about Clayton Maines, but Keyshawn Griffin, he had a pick 6 for the Pelham defense, and that Pelham defense played an incredible game. You look at some of those other guys, Will Felton, Bishop Morello. This is a team that's going to continue to put up big numbers on the defensive side of the football. And another guy who's putting up some incredible numbers this year, that's Hunter Hell right here at Helena High School. He could be a difference maker in this big battle against Briarwood. He had 7 receptions for 78 yards. That's not the biggest part of it, though. 4 touchdowns receiving. Also had a punt return for a touchdown for 5 total TDs in that win a week ago against Jackson Olin. So this is a Hunter Hell athlete who is making big-time play after big-time play. And on the other side of that matchup that we're going to see this week, we got a couple of Briarwood players to mention, and that's Josh Thompson and Cooper Higgins. Higgins went for 99 rushing yards and a touchdown in that win against Oak Mountain and against a physical 7A good defense. He goes for 99 and a touchdown. And Thompson threw for 156 yards and 2 touchdowns and ran for an additional 59 yards as he goes for over 200 all-purpose yards with a couple of scores there for the Briarwood Lions. And then we got 1 Montevallo, 1 Vincent player, Rosario Conwell for the Bulldogs, 22 carries, 100 yards, and a touchdown. Ultimately made the difference there in that win for Montevallo, a 1-point win as he scored the final touchdown of the night there for the Bulldogs. And Jaden Roberts stepping in as a backup at the running back position, 164 rushing yards and a touchdown on just 10 carries there for the Yellow Jackets as Vincent struggles to put away a win as they fall to Childersburg 16-14, but they get another promising young playmaker and an athlete that can make some plays moving forward. So congrats to all of our stars this week, our 4 stars of the week, and our honorable mention players as well. Another huge week ahead, and we should have some big-time players to talk about as we hit next week's show. Well, that's going to do it for this week's Shelby County High School football show. It's going to be another big night. We've got a big one here. We've got a big one out at Thompson Hewitt. We've got several teams fighting for their playoff lives, in my opinion. What are you looking forward to the most this week, Andrew, as we hit week 7 of the high school football season?
I'm looking forward most to both of our games of the week, Helena Briarwood and Thompson Hewitt, just seeing which of those teams comes out and makes a statement that can help decide whether they're going to win the region title or not. These are obviously the best teams that we've seen in the region so far and could possibly be the 2 teams that we look at the end of the season as the top 2 seeds in the region. So this might just be the game that separates them, and I'm looking to see who makes a statement on the offense, who makes a statement on defense, and who just all around looks like the better team in that matchup.
Yeah, for me, it's the cooler weather. We're expecting some cooler weather this weekend. It may not get here till Saturday, but we're heading in the right direction. It's starting to feel like fall, which means it's starting to feel like playoff season, which means we're going to tie it together here. I'm excited to see which teams that are in the playoff hunt can pick up a huge win this week. We just talked about the 2 that you mentioned. Which one of those teams is going to walk away with a victory and have a best chance at winning a region championship? But beyond that, those teams like Spain Park, Pelham, Calera, just all those teams that are still battling, Vincent, Montevallo, battling for a playoff spot, for playoff seeding down the line, we're going to have a much clearer picture of where things are going after this Friday night. Spain Park in a very big matchup, Pelham another big chance, and several others as well. So we'll get a clearer picture of what's going to be ahead for these teams, what their chances are to battle for a playoff spot down the stretch. That's what I'm looking forward to, and I think we're going to see a lot of good football games because of what's at stake and what's on the line when all these teams meet this Friday night. Andrew will be out at Thompson Hewitt at Hewitt-Trussville. I'll be right here at Helena High School as Helena hosts the Briarwood Lions. Those 2 games going to be massive, but just 2 of many on what's a busy, busy night for us right here in Shelby County. We can't wait to see it all unfold. Can't wait to see the reactions that come after as well. We'll see our Facebook Live pregame show this Friday night. Until then, that's going to do it from here at Helena High School. We'll see you then.